We told y'all. We told you when we signed off last week that the exclusive fantasy league was gonna look different when we came back on this mic. And boy, did things flip upside down fast. Single elimination does not care about your regular season record. It does not care about projections, and it definitely does not care about feelings.
Man, somewhere right now, somebody is sick. And I mean sick. Losing by less than a point, watching that scoreboard refresh, and then realizing you left 25 points on the bench, that'll have you staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., asking yourself why you even downloaded Sleeper in the first place.
That's playoff fantasy football. One bad decision, one weird bounce, one Monday night drive, and your whole season is over. And before we even get into who's still chasing the belt, we gotta talk about the other side of the bracket. Because just like the playoffs, the toilet bowl is real, and the consequences are loud. Let's start with last week, Type Stuff versus Soul Knights. Final score, 190 to 129. And honestly, Big T, this one got ugly quick.
Yeah, it did. Soul Knights just couldn't keep pace. And it didn't help that Patrick Mahomes only gave him 13 points before going down with a torn ACL. Once that happened, it was curtains. You lose your quarterback like that, you're already swimming upstream with bricks in your pockets.
Meanwhile, Type Stuff came in with firepower. Jared Goff was steady, Puka Nakua did what Puka does, and Trey McBride, man, that dude is basically a WR1 disguised as a tight end. Soul Knights never recovered.
And that's the scary part about the toilet bowl. You don't just lose, you lose loud. And now, Soul Knights moves on, and not in a good way.
Which brings us to this week's toilet bowl matchups. First one, Harlem versus Soul Knights. And let's not sugarcoat this. Harlem's been living in this part of the bracket all season.
He's basically got a permanent parking spot down there. And right now, Harlem is favored to be crowned the Shit King. That's not a title you want, but it's looking real possible.
Loser of that matchup is staring straight at last place. No spin zones, no excuses.
And then you've got Jay Woods versus King Silverback. Two guys who finished the regular season at 5-9, same record, same margin for error. 0.
History doesn't favor King Silverback here either. Jay Woods beat him twice this season, both times by over 30. But this isn't the regular season anymore.
Exactly. Nobody cares what you did in October. You lose now, you're one step closer to paying for belt shipping, and that's motivation enough to double-check every lineup decision.
All right, let's shift to the games that actually sent shockwaves through the league. Round 1 of the playoffs, and we've got to start with that game. Candy Girl versus Murk City.
Man, 114.8 to 114.36. Less than half a point. That's the kind of loss that stays with you.
This matchup had everything. Two cousins who compete over everything. Bragging rights, pride, family trash talk. This was bigger than just moving on. And it came down to Monday night. Dolphins versus Steelers.
Murk goes into that game trailing, holding onto the Steelers' defense like a lottery ticket. And all he needed was just enough.
9 points. That's it. Steelers defense gives him 9, and Murk steals the win.
And I'm gonna say it. I told you so. I said Murk would find a way, and he did.
Whatever. Part of the problem was that Candy Girl's kicker, Evan McPherson, gave her 0. 0. Not only that, but she left Dallas Goedert on the bench. All 25 points of him against a terrible Vegas defense.
That's the debate right there. Was it luck? Yeah. But was it mismanagement? Also, yeah. You don't leave that kind of upside on the bench in the playoffs.
Next one wasn't close on the scoreboard, but it was wild early. Dusty G versus AJ. Final score, 209 to 154. Dusty wins. AJ's season ends.
And here's the crazy part. AJ came out swinging. Kyle Pitts dropped 47 points. 47! That's the kind of start that makes you think, okay, we're good.
Except Dusty didn't blink. Brock Purdy, who AJ dropped 3 times this season, comes back to haunt him. James Cook had a game. Josh Jacobs showed up. Tyrone Tracy, a last-minute pickup, chipped in. Even Dusty's kicker put up 18.
It was an avalanche. AJ never recovered. And Chuck, I'll eat this one. I said Dusty couldn't beat a man 3 times in one season, but he must have been listening to our podcast. I think I pissed him off.
And then the upset. Dylan Pickles versus AcknowledgeMe. Final score, 164 to 131. Dylan's out.
I told you, you don't want to see AcknowledgeMe right now. He snuck into the playoffs and turned into a problem.
Josh Allen didn't even need a fast start to be dangerous. DeAndre Swift handled his business. And Mike Evans came back from that collarbone injury like he never left.
That's momentum, that's belief. And now my postseason picks are up 2-1, just saying.
So here's the updated picture. 4 teams left. Boyyy, Dusty G, Murk City, AcknowledgeMe.
And the one that scares me the most? AcknowledgeMe. Ceiling wins championships. Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Michael Wilson stepping up. If those guys hit, you're not beating him.
I agree, but I'll add this. That dependency on 40-point games can bite you in the ass. If one of those stars comes back to earth, it gets shaky fast.
And speaking of shaky, Murk City barely survives round 1, only scores 115, and would have lost to Type Stuff and Soul Knights if he played them last week.
Feels like a spoiler run more than a championship run, doesn't it? All right, let's slow this down and really talk about it. Semi-final game number 1. The 1 seed, Boyyy, versus number 5, Murk City. And Big T, on paper, this matchup looks like it shouldn't even be close.
On paper, it looks like a crime scene. Boyyy averages 167 points per game this season. Murk City averages 123. That's not a small gap, that's a different tax bracket.
And it's not just averages, it's consistency. Boyyy hasn't just been winning, he's been controlling games. There are weeks where the matchup is basically decided by Sunday afternoon.
Meanwhile, Murk barely survived last week. Less than half a point. 1 defensive drive away from being at home right now. That tells you everything about how thin the margin is for him.
Let's talk weapons. Because Boyy's lineup is exactly what you want in the playoffs. Drake May, MVP level season, leading New England to an 11-3 record. He doesn't disappear. He gives you floor and ceiling.
And then there's Jahmyr Gibbs. Facing a Steelers run defense ranked 19th in the league. That's not scary. That's an opportunity. And Devin Achane, leading the NFL at 5.8 yards per carry. Every touch is a threat to flip the matchup.
Now on Murk's side, Lamar Jackson is always dangerous. You never disrespect Lamar in fantasy. He's the kind of quarterback who can erase a deficit by himself.
True, but here's the problem. Lamar has to be perfect, because after that, it drops off. Ashton Janney has been steady, but now he's facing a Texans defense that's top 4 in yards allowed per carry. That's not the week you want to rely on volume alone.
And let's not forget history. These two have played twice this season. The last meeting, Murk lost by 117 points. That wasn't bad luck. That was domination.
The only thing that keeps this interesting is the quarterback matchup. Drake May versus Lamar Jackson, Sunday night under the lights. If Lamar goes off and May has an average game, things can tighten up fast.
But if we're talking floors, balance, and playoff reliability, this feels like Boyy's game to lose.
Yeah. I'm not betting against a miracle, but I'm leaning Boyyy. Murk's run feels like it's been fueled by survival, not control.
Now this one. This is where the real argument is. Dusty G versus AcknowledgeMe. And if you're looking for the matchup with tension, storylines, and star power, this is it.
This is experience versus momentum. And those are the 2 hardest things to measure in fantasy playoffs.
Let's start with Dusty. He's been at or near the top of the rankings all year. Averages 158 points per game, was active in the trade market, and willing to make big swings. like grabbing Christian McCaffrey minutes before the deadline.
And Dusty's resume matters. He's beaten top teams. But he's also had some weird losses. King Silverback, Soul Knights, games he probably shouldn't have dropped. Which tells me one thing.
He's human.
Exactly. But when Dusty is right, his lineup is scary. McCaffrey against the Colts, even with a strong run defense, still commands touches. James Cook is 88 yards away from one of the best rushing seasons in Bills history. That's motivation.
And Jacoby Brissett, not flashy, but consistent. Since week 6, he's thrown at least 2 touchdowns every game. That matters in the playoffs.
Now let's talk about the man nobody wants to see right now. AcknowledgeMe.
This is a completely different team than the one we saw earlier in the season. He spent weeks in the toilet bowl bracket. And then, something clicked.
Josh Allen is the engine. And not just because of passing yards, it's the rushing upside, the red zone usage. He doesn't need a perfect game script to explode.
And Saquon Barkley gets the Washington Commanders, the 28th ranked rushing defense. That's a green light matchup. If Saquon gets rolling early, Dusty is playing from behind immediately.
Brock Bowers gives AcknowledgeMe an edge at tight end too. Even against a strong Houston pass defense, volume at that position is gold.
This game is about philosophy. Dusty is built on balance and consistency. AcknowledgeMe is built on ceiling and momentum.
And I'll say it again, ceiling wins championships, especially when your stars are hot at the right time.
I hear that, but I'm leaning Dusty because over a full playoff week, I trust the lineup with fewer holes. Fewer, if this then that, scenarios.
And I'm leaning AcknowledgeMe because nobody is playing freer right now. He already beat a favorite. He's got nothing to lose. That's dangerous.
All right. Before we get out of here, let's take a step back. We've watched the regular season burn down. We've watched favorites fall, and now we're standing at the edge of the championship. So let me ask it this way. Who, right now, feels inevitable?
It's still Boyyy. And it's not disrespect to anybody left. It's just reality. He's been the standard all year. He didn't sneak in. He didn't survive by luck. He earned the 1 seed. He's averaged damn near 170 a game, and every single week his lineup walks in with answers.
That's the key word. Answers. Injuries? He's got depth. Bad matchup? He's got options. You don't see panic moves. You don't see desperation. That's why he feels inevitable. Not because he's unbeatable, but because he's prepared.
And let's be real, the playoffs haven't even rattled him yet. Everybody else has felt pressure at some point. Boyyy hasn't blinked.
All right. Now, flip it. Who feels fragile?
Murk City. No hesitation. Last week was survival mode. Less than a point. 1 defensive drive away from elimination. And when you're walking into the semifinals already needing perfect conditions, that's not where you want to be.
Yeah. Murk's path has been thin. The margin is razor tight. And when you look at his average scoring compared to who's left, the math gets uncomfortable fast.
That doesn't mean he can't ruin somebody's season, because he absolutely can. But the idea of him holding that belt at the end, that's hard to picture unless chaos breaks loose.
Now here's the one that keeps coming up every time we talk. The quiet danger team. The one nobody wants to see on their side of the bracket.
That's AcknowledgeMe. All day. Because that team is built on ceiling. Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley. Big play guys who don't need volume to change a matchup. 1 quarter, 1 drive. 1 busted coverage, and suddenly you're down 40.
And what makes him dangerous isn't just the players, it's the timing. He's hot now. He didn't peak in week 6. He didn't fade late. He's peaking when it matters.
That's why momentum matters. Fantasy football isn't just math. It's confidence. It's knowing your guys are hitting at the right time.
All right. Let's put it on the record. No hedging. No if this happens. Bold predictions. Who's playing for the belt?
I've got Boyyy versus AcknowledgeMe. And here's why. Boyyy survives because consistency carries him there. AcknowledgeMe survives because his stars go nuclear. That's the collision I want. That's floor versus ceiling on the biggest stage.
And I've got Boyyy versus Dusty G. Experience matters. Balance matters. Dusty's been here all season, and when he's locked in, his lineup doesn't have holes. I trust that over boom or bust when everything's on the line.
Either way, nobody left here is lucky. Everybody earned their seat, and everybody left can win the whole damn thing.
That's the reality of it now. No more safety nets. No more next week.
Win, and you advance. Lose, and the season you spent months building is just done.
The path is narrow. The pressure is heavy.
And the battle for the belt is officially down to the real ones.
This is exclusive.